The street child rests his head on the chest of the comatose millionaire, and finally, the heavy silence of the hospital corridor was broken only by the constant noise of the machines keeping Richard Montgomery alive. For 6 months, the 68-year-old businessman had remained in a vegetative state, while his family fought over the inheritance and the doctors held no more hope for recovery. That's when Tyler, an 11-year-old boy with a completely shaved head due to leukemia treatment, approached the unconscious millionaire's bed. The boy had been placed in the same room due to lack of space at the public hospital in Chicago, a situation that head nurse Margaret Wilson described as temporary. But when the boy gently rested his head on Richard's chest, something inexplicable happened. The heart monitors began emitting different signals. The rhythm that had remained weak and irregular for months suddenly stabilized. The blood pressure, which had been fluctuating dangerously, found a healthier pattern. Margaret, a 55-year-old experienced nurse who had worked at that hospital for over 3 decades, was perplexed at the scene. "Young man, step away for a moment," she said, wanting to confirm her suspicions. Tyler obeyed, returning to his own bed. Immediately, Richard's vital signs returned to their previous weak and concerning pattern. The nurse brought the boy closer to the businessman again, and the numbers on the monitors instantly improved. "This isn't possible," murmured Margaret, checking the equipment to make sure there was no technical malfunction. Tyler looked at her with his large, tired eyes, still weak from the chemotherapy he had been receiving for 4 months. "Ma'am, does the gentleman get better when I'm near?" he asked in the whispered voice of someone used to not bothering anyone. "It seems so, my child. Do you know this man?" The boy shook his head no, but continued observing Richard's serene face. There was something familiar about those features, something he couldn't explain. Tyler had spent most of his 11 years living on the streets of downtown Chicago, until he was found unconscious at the hospital entrance 3 weeks ago. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next day, Jennifer Montgomery arrived at the hospital like a storm. The 42-year-old daughter of Richard, a woman accustomed to controlling every aspect of her life, discovered that a stranger was sharing a room with her father and became furious. "How dare you put some random child in the same environment as my father?" she shouted at Dr. Susan Miller, the physician in charge of the case. "I demand this boy be transferred immediately." Dr. Susan, a competent 50-year-old neurologist, maintained the professional calm she had developed throughout her career. "Mrs. Jennifer, I understand your concern, but I need to show you something important," she said, leading her to the medical records. "Look at these charts from the last 2 days." Jennifer examined the papers skeptically, but couldn't deny what she was seeing. Her father's vital signs showed significant improvement whenever they coincided with the times when the boy was nearby. "This must be a coincidence," she said, but her voice no longer sounded so convinced. "We conducted specific tests," explained Dr. Susan. "Whenever the boy approaches your father, the indicators improve. When he moves away, they return to the previous pattern." Jennifer looked through the glass window of the room, where Tyler was sleeping peacefully in the bed next to her father. The contrast was striking, the frail, bald boy clearly undergoing treatment, next to the well-dressed man even in the hospital, surrounded by expensive flowers and modern equipment. "Who is this boy?" she asked, her anger giving way to curiosity. "We don't know much," the doctor admitted. "He was found passed out right here at the hospital entrance. He has no identification, can't give us any information about family. We only know his name is Tyler and that he has advanced leukemia." At that moment, Robert Montgomery, Theodore's younger brother, arrived accompanied by 2 lawyers. The 58-year-old man had a determined expression and papers in hand. "Jennifer, what's this story about a child in Theodore's room?" he asked, without even greeting his niece. "This is obviously a scam. Someone planted this boy here to get access to our family's fortune." "Uncle Robert, it's not quite like that," Jennifer tried to explain, but he interrupted her. "I've already brought the lawyers. We'll get a court order to remove this child immediately. This is a dangerous and absurd situation." The discussion began to heat up in the hallway, with Robert insisting it was all an elaborate hoax, while Dr. Susan tried to explain the medical data. It was then that Tyler woke up and, frightened by the loud voices, timidly approached the room door. "Please don't fight," he said in a weak voice. "I can leave if you want me to. I don't want to cause any trouble." Jennifer looked at the boy and felt something stir in her chest. There was a dignity in that sick child that touched her unexpectedly. "Do you know my father?" she asked, crouching down to be at eye level with Tyler. The boy hesitated for a moment, as if trying to remember something very distant. "I think so, ma'am. There's a kind man who talks to me at the bakery on Michigan Avenue. He gives me bread and milk every morning and teaches me numbers and letters. His face looks like the man who's sleeping over there." Robert laughed disdainfully. "What nonsense! Theodore never set foot in a street bakery in his life. This boy is making up stories." But Jennifer was intrigued. She knew her father had changed some habits in recent years, leaving home early and arriving at the office later, but she had never questioned why. Catherine Brown, Theodore's personal secretary for 15 years, arrived at that moment for the daily visit she had been making since the accident. An organized 52-year-old woman, she knew her boss's routine better than anyone. "Catherine," Jennifer called, "do you know if my father frequented any bakery on Michigan Avenue?" The secretary seemed surprised by the question, but answered without hesitation. "Of course I know. Mr. Theodore woke up at 6 every morning for the past 2 years to have coffee at Riverside Bakery on Michigan. He said he liked the simple atmosphere and the people he met there." Robert turned pale but tried to maintain his theory. "That proves nothing. Half the city goes to bakeries. It's just a coincidence." Tyler carefully tugged at the hem of Jennifer's blouse. "Ma'am, can I tell you something? The kind man told me he had a very smart daughter who worked with computers, and that he was very proud of her. He also said he missed his mother, who isn't here anymore." Jennifer felt her heart race. Her father rarely spoke about her grandmother, who had passed away 5 years ago, and few people knew she worked in information technology. "What else did he tell you?" she asked, her voice choked. "He said he really wanted to have a son to teach how to play football and fish, but that God had given him a wonderful daughter, and he was happy with that. He also said his dream was to help children study." Tears began to stream down Jennifer's face. Those were words only her father would say, feelings he had shared with her in intimate conversations. Mr. Frank, owner of Riverside Bakery, arrived at the hospital that afternoon accompanied by Catherine, who had called him explaining the situation. The 65-year-old man, with graying hair and hands calloused from decades of working with dough, confirmed the whole story. "Richard would come here every day, always at the same time," he told the gathered family. "At first, he drank coffee alone, read the newspaper, but when this boy showed up asking for food, everything changed." "How so?" asked Jennifer. "Your father started coming earlier, always brought notebooks, pencils. He taught math and English to Tyler, said the boy was very smart, had potential to be a doctor." Tyler hid behind Jennifer, embarrassed by the attention, but Mr. Frank continued. "Richard said that boy reminded him of himself when he was a child, before he got rich. Said he wanted to give Tyler the opportunities he had." Robert still tried to find flaws in the story, but his conviction was shaken. "And why did my brother never mention this to the family?" he questioned. "Because you never asked," replied Catherine with brutal simplicity. "Mr. Richard was always discreet about his charitable acts. He had several projects he kept secret." That night, Jennifer decided to stay at the hospital to observe the interaction between Tyler and her father more closely. Nurse Margaret instructed her on basic care and left her settled in a chair in the room. Around 2 in the morning, Tyler woke up. The child was used to medication schedules and rarely slept through the night. Instead of calling the nurse, as expected, the boy quietly approached Richard's bed. "Hi, kind sir," he whispered. "Auntie said you're very sick. I'm sick too, you know. But the doctors say I'll get better if I'm brave." Jennifer pretended to keep sleeping, but watched everything through half-closed eyes. "You can get better too if you want," continued Tyler, gently holding Richard's hand. "I can teach you how to be brave. You just have to remember the good things that happened in life." The boy began to whisper softly about mornings at the bakery, about how important he felt when Richard helped him with his lessons. He talked about his dreams of studying medicine to help other sick children like himself. "You know, kind sir, I never had a real father, but when I'm with you, I feel protected, like I have a family." It was at that moment Jennifer saw something that would stay with her forever. A single tear ran down her unconscious father's face. She had to bite her own hand to keep from crying out with emotion. The next day, Dr. Susan performed new neurological tests on Richard, this time specifically during moments when Tyler was nearby. The results were surprising. "Brain activity increases significantly," she explained to Jennifer. "There are neurological reactions indicating your father is somehow perceiving the boy's presence." "Does that mean he might wake up?" asked Jennifer, full of hope. "I can't guarantee it, but it's the most positive sign we've seen in 6 months." Meanwhile, Robert hired a private investigator to expose what he still considered a scam. Michael was a 45-year-old experienced man, accustomed to cases of false identities and attempted fraud against wealthy families. "I want you to find out everything about this boy," instructed Robert. "Where he came from, who sent him, what the plan is. There has to be a logical explanation for all this." Michael began his investigation on the streets near the hospital, talking to homeless people, shopkeepers, and shelter staff. What he discovered, however, wasn't what Robert expected to hear. Mrs. Harrison, a 70-year-old woman who ran a small informal shelter downtown, had known Tyler for months. "That boy arrived here alone, skinny, scared," she told him. "He said he didn't remember any family, that he'd grown up on the street since he was little. But he was different from the other boys." "How so different?" asked Michael. "Too smart for someone who never went to school. He knew how to read a little, he knew numbers. Someone had taught him, but he couldn't remember who." The story began to come together when Michael discovered that Tyler had first appeared in the Michigan Avenue area exactly 2 years ago, around the same time Richard started visiting the bakery. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Back at the hospital, a new character entered the story. Hope Williams, a humble 58-year-old woman, showed up looking for Tyler. She worked as a cleaner in an office building and had taken the boy into her small home 3 months prior when she found him passed out on the street. "I came as soon as I heard he was in the hospital," she told Jennifer with tears in her eyes. "That boy is an angel. Ever since he came to my house, all he talks about is a kind gentleman who teaches him things." Hope confirmed everything Tyler had said. The boy constantly talked about his mornings at the bakery, about how happy he felt when he could show he had learned something new. "He said that gentleman was like a father to him," Hope recounted. "He said that one day he would get to study for real and make the gentleman proud." Dr. Susan asked to speak privately with Hope about Tyler's medical history. What she discovered added another emotional layer to the story. "The boy was in a very advanced state when he was found," the doctor explained. "Normally, cases like this don't respond so well to treatment, but Tyler has shown exceptional willpower." "Why?" asked Hope. "He says he needs to get better to take care of the kind gentleman who is sick. This motivation has been fundamental to his own treatment." That afternoon, Dr. Benjamin Reed, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma, spoke with Tyler. The boy had developed growing trust with the medical team and was more willing to talk about his past. "Tyler, do you remember how you met Mr. Richard?" asked Dr. Benjamin. The boy closed his eyes, concentrating. "I was very hungry. It had rained a lot and I had nowhere to sleep. Then I saw that warm bakery and I was looking at the bread in the window. And then the kind gentleman was leaving the bakery and saw me. He asked if I was hungry. He bought bread and milk for me and said if I came back the next day at the same time, he would be there." "Did you go back?" "I went back every day," Tyler answered with a weak smile. "He was always there, always with notebooks and pencils. He taught me to write my name, to do sums. He said I was very smart." Dr. Benjamin was impressed by the boy's detailed memory and how his eyes shone when he talked about Richard. "What else did you do together?" "He told me stories about when he was a poor boy like me. He said he studied hard and worked hard to have a better life. He said I could do the same thing." "And how did he make you feel?" Tyler thought for a moment before answering. "I felt important, like someone truly cared about me. These conversations were recorded and later shared with Jennifer, who was moved to hear the genuineness in the boy's voice. It was becoming increasingly clear that the connection between Tyler and his father was real and deep. Meanwhile, Michael, the investigator, continued his research and made a surprising discovery. He located records of an educational foundation that Richard had quietly created 2 years earlier, with the goal of providing scholarships for underprivileged children. I found documents showing that your brother was preparing a full scholarship for a specific child, Michael reported to Robert. There's no name on the papers, just the description: boy between 10 and 12 years old, high intellectual capacity, socially vulnerable situation. Robert remained silent for a long moment. The evidence was mounting against his theory of a scam, but he still wasn't ready to accept reality. At the hospital, Tyler developed a peculiar routine. Every morning he would ask someone to buy the newspaper and then sit by Richard's bedside to read the news aloud, exactly as they did at the bakery. "There's a story about education today, kind sir," he would say, pointing to the pages. "It says the government will build more schools. You always said education is the most important thing in the world." Jennifer began joining these morning moments, initially out of curiosity, but later out of genuine emotion. Seeing the boy's dedication and hearing how he spoke about her father was transforming her from within. "Tyler," she said one of those mornings, "do you know my father always wanted to have a son?" The boy looked at her with interest. "He told me that. Said he wanted to teach soccer and go fishing. But he also said he had a wonderful daughter, and that was even better." "He really said that?" "He did. Said his daughter was smart and strong, and that he was very proud. Just that sometimes he felt you were growing apart." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. It was true. In recent years, her conversations with her father had been limited to business and family obligations. She had lost the closeness they had when she was a child. "Did he miss me?" she asked, her voice choked. "He missed you a lot. Always asked how he could be a better father. I told him he was already the best father in the world because he took care of me like he was my real father." These words touched Jennifer deeply. She began to understand that Tyler had filled an emotional void in her father's life, just as Richard had fulfilled the need for a father figure in the boy's life. During one of Tyler's chemotherapy sessions, something worrying happened. The boy had to be away for several hours for treatment, and during this time, Richard's vital signs worsened dramatically. Dr. Susan urgently called Jennifer. "You need to come to the hospital immediately. Your father has had a significant drop in all indicators." When Jennifer arrived, she found the medical team on high alert. The heart monitor showed dangerous arrhythmias, and blood pressure had plummeted. "Where is Tyler?" was her first question. "Having chemotherapy on the floor below," replied Nurse Margaret. "He doesn't know what's happening here. Can we bring him?" "His treatment can't be interrupted," explained Dr. Susan. "But maybe we can try something different." That's when they had the idea to record Tyler's voice reading the newspaper and talking, to play in the room during his absences. Nurse Margaret had noticed that Richard reacted not only to the boy's physical presence, but also to his voice. When Tyler returned from treatment, he found everyone agitated. The boy, even weak and nauseous from chemotherapy, immediately worried about Richard. "What happened to the nice gentleman?" he asked, seeing the machines making different sounds. "He missed you," replied Jennifer, realizing the truth in those words. Tyler approached the bed and carefully rested his head again on Richard's chest. Gradually, the signals on the monitors began to stabilize. "Hi, nice gentleman," he whispered. "Sorry I took so long. I had to take my medicine to get strong. But I'm back now. I won't leave you alone." Jennifer watched the scene with tears in her eyes. It was clear there was an inexplicable, yet deeply real, connection between those two. That night, she found documents in her father's safe that completely changed her perspective. Among the educational foundation papers, there were Richard's personal notes about the little genius from Michigan Avenue. The notes described Tyler's progress in his studies, his reactions to lessons, his dreams and fears. Richard had documented everything with the care of a proud father. Tyler correctly calculated the discount percentage of a promotion at the bakery today. His mathematical ability is impressive for someone who never attended formal school. The boy asked me today if it's possible for a poor person to become a doctor. I explained about scholarships and public universities. His eyes shone in a way that reminded me of myself at 12. Tyler has been looking thinner lately. I need to look further into his living situation. I can't let him go without. The last note, written a week before the accident that left Richard in a coma, was especially touching. I spoke with my lawyers about adoption procedures. Tyler needs a real family, and I need a son. Perhaps it's the answer we were both looking for. Jennifer cried as she read those words. Her father had found in Tyler not just a child to help, but the son he had always dreamed of having. And the boy had found the father he never had. The next day, she shared these discoveries with Tyler. The boy listened to everything in silence, with tears streaming down his face. "He really wanted to be my dad?" he asked, his voice breaking. "He very much did," confirmed Jennifer, "and I think you already are his son, Tyler. Maybe not on paper, but in his heart." "And will you let me?" he asked, fearful. "If he wakes up, will you let me be his son?" Jennifer looked at that brave boy who was fighting a serious illness and yet worried more about Richard than himself. "Tyler, I would be honored to have you as a brother," she said, holding his hands. "My father chose you and I trust his judgment." Meanwhile, Robert was still trying to find ways to contest the situation, but his conviction was increasingly shaken. The family pressure, the accumulating evidence, and the medical results themselves were making his position untenable. Catherine, the secretary, decided to reveal more information she had kept out of professional discretion. "Mr. Robert, I need to tell you something that might change your mind," she said. "In the last few months before the accident, your brother was very happy, happier than I had seen him in years." "How so?" "He talked constantly about Tyler. He said he had found a new purpose in life, that he felt useful in a way that business never provided." "That doesn't change the fact that it's all very strange," insisted Robert, but with less conviction. "Mr. Robert, with all due respect, the strange thing would be if your brother didn't grow attached to a child as special as Tyler. Richard always had a generous heart. Tyler just brought that out in him again." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the hospital. Tyler had fainted during a physical therapy session, and his condition had deteriorated rapidly. Dr. Claire Johnson, the oncologist in charge of the boy's treatment, called Hope and Jennifer for a serious talk. "Tyler's condition has become more complicated," she explained. "His body is very weak. We need to intensify the treatment, but that means he'll have to spend more time away from Mr. Richard Montgomery's room." "What if this makes my father's condition worse?" asked Jennifer. "It's a complex medical dilemma. They both benefit from being close, but Tyler needs intensive care." It was at that moment that something unexpected happened. During a severe storm that hit Chicago that night, the hospital had power problems. For about 20 minutes, the equipment ran only on emergency generators. Tyler, panicked by the darkness and strange noises, managed to get out of bed and approach Richard. With tears on his face, he hugged the unconscious man. "Please, kind sir, don't go away," he begged. "I promise I'll be brave. I promise I'll study hard and become a doctor like you wanted. Just don't leave me alone." "You taught me that good people don't give up," continued Tyler, his voice choked up. "So you can't give up now. I need you. You're the only father I have." It was in this moment of emotional desperation that the first miracle happened. Even with the monitors in emergency mode, Nurse Margaret, who was in the room with a flashlight, clearly saw Richard weakly squeeze Tyler's hand. "My God," she whispered. "Tyler, keep talking. Don't stop talking to him." The boy, not fully understanding what was happening, continued talking to Richard about his memories of the bakery, about his dreams, about how he felt loved for the first time in his life. And then, in the middle of the darkness, something happened that forever marked everyone present. A tear, clear and visible, rolled down Richard's face. When the power was restored, the doctors confirmed that significant neurological activity had occurred during those 20 minutes. Richard had responded to Tyler's emotional stress in a way that 6 months of medical treatment had failed to provoke. Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Dr. Susan Miller proposed an experimental protocol. Instead of separating Tyler and Richard for intensive treatment, she suggested adapting the medical care so both could remain close. The connection between them is proving more effective than any medication, she explained to the family. We need to work with it, not against it. Robert, who had witnessed the scene during the storm, finally began to accept reality. Seeing his brother react emotionally for the first time in 6 months had convinced him that there was something genuine in that relationship. Maybe I misjudged the situation, he admitted to Jennifer. If Richard wakes up and wants to adopt the boy, I won't oppose it. Really? Asked Jennifer, surprised by her uncle's change of attitude. Our brother has always been a man of integrity. If he chose Tyler, he must have good reasons. In the following days, the hospital routine adjusted to accommodate the special needs of the situation. Tyler received his treatments early in the morning, before Richard woke up. Although technically unconscious, his brain patterns showed more activity during the day. The mornings became a sacred ritual. Tyler would read the newspaper, talk about his progress in treatment, discuss what he had learned from the nurse about medicine. Today, Aunt Margaret taught me about the medicines you take, he would say. They're very complicated, but I'm going to learn everything so I can take care of you when you wake up. Jennifer had become a constant presence at the hospital, dividing her time between work and visits. She began actively participating in Tyler's conversations with his father, creating a family dynamic none of them had experienced before. Tyler, my father always wanted to teach someone to play football, she said one afternoon. When he wakes up, I'll convince him to take you to Soldier Field. Do you think he'll like watching me play? Asked Tyler, his eyes shining. He'll love it. He always said what matters isn't winning but having fun and learning. Hope continued visiting Tyler daily and gradually integrated into the group. Her presence brought emotional stability to the boy, who needed to know he had a home to return to. Mrs. Hope, said Jennifer in a conversation, when my father wakes up, I'd like you to be part of our family too. Tyler will need all of us. The humble woman was moved by the invitation. I only want what's best for this boy, she replied. He brought joy to my empty house. If he stays with you, who can give him more opportunities? I'll be happy. It's not about replacing anyone, explained Jennifer. Tyler can have many people who love him, the more the better. Dr. Benjamin continued monitoring Tyler's psychological development throughout the process. The boy showed impressive resilience, maintaining optimism despite the difficult circumstances. Tyler has exceptional emotional maturity, reported the psychologist. He instinctively understands that his relationship with Richard is special and is willing to fight for it. How is he handling his own illness? Asked Jennifer. Interesting, you should ask. Since he started caring for Richard, Tyler shows much more willingness for his own treatment. It's as if having a purpose has increased his will to live. This observation proved prophetic. In subsequent tests, Tyler showed signs of improvement that surprised the medical team. His white blood cell count had stabilized, and his response to chemotherapy was exceptionally positive. It's rare to see such rapid recovery in such advanced cases, commented Dr. Clare. Tyler has extraordinary motivation to heal. When asked about his improvement, the boy replied with touching simplicity, I need to get better to take care of the nice man when he wakes up, and also to study hard and make him proud of me. 1 month after the storm, the second big revelation happened. Elizabeth Montgomery, Richard's ex-wife, returned from an extended trip to Europe and learned about the situation from the family lawyer. Elizabeth had separated from Richard 5 years ago, not for lack of love, but because of irreconcilable differences about having more children. She wanted to try again, but he thought they were too old. The separation had been amicable, but painful for both. When she arrived at the hospital and saw Tyler, her reaction was unexpected. My God, she whispered, staring at the boy. Richard, you found your son. Mrs. Elizabeth? Called Tyler, not understanding who this elegant woman was. Hello, dear, she said, crouching down to his eye level. I'm a very old friend of the nice man. May I ask you a question? Tyler nodded. On June 23rd, Did you by any chance help a lady who almost got hit by a car on Michigan Avenue? The boy thought for a moment. Yes, I did. A lady with white hair was crossing and didn't see the car. I shouted to her and pulled her to the sidewalk. Elizabeth began to cry. That lady was Mrs. Eleanor, Richard's mother. That's why he started looking for you. The revelation left everyone in shock. Tyler had saved Richard Montgomery's mother, and that had been the catalyst for the entire relationship that developed between them. Mrs. Eleanor came to me afterward, continued Elizabeth. She was very emotional, saying an angel had saved her. She described a thin, polite boy who didn't want to accept a reward. Richard became obsessed with finding that boy, she went on. He searched for weeks until he discovered you frequented that area. That's when he started going to the bakery every day. Tyler listened to everything in silence, processing the information that his instinctive kindness had created a chain of events that changed his life. He never told me he looked for me, the boy murmured. Because he didn't want you to feel obligated to anything, explained Elizabeth. Richard wanted you to develop a natural relationship based on genuine affection, not gratitude. This revelation brought a new dimension to the whole story. It wasn't a coincidence that Richard and Tyler met. It was the result of an act of kindness that had deeply touched the businessman's heart. Elizabeth decided to stay in Chicago to follow the case's progress. Her presence brought more information about Richard's past and his feelings about fatherhood. He always wanted a son, she told Jennifer. He talked about teaching values, about leaving a legacy that went beyond money. Tyler represents everything your father dreamed of for a son. Why did you two separate again? Asked Jennifer, curious about this part of her father's life. I wanted to try to have another child at 50. Your father thought we were too old, that it would be selfish of us. Ironically, he found fatherhood in a way none of us imagined. The following weeks brought slow but consistent progress. Tyler continued improving, and Richard's signs showed small advances. The medical team was optimistic but cautious. It was during one of these weeks that the physical therapist Jason Cooper made an important observation. I've noticed subtle movements in Mr. Montgomery's finger, he reported. They always happen when Tyler is holding his hand. Dr. Susan decided to do a controlled test. With Tyler holding one of Richard's hands, she applied stimuli to the other hand. To everyone's surprise, Richard reacted by squeezing the boy's fingers. This is amazing, she commented. It's as if he's using Tyler as an anchor to connect with the outside world. Tyler was overjoyed when he learned about the reaction. He squeezed my hand. Does that mean he knows I'm here? We believe so, the doctor answered. Your father is fighting to come back, Tyler, and you're helping him in that fight. The boy spent the rest of the day talking animatedly to Richard, telling him about everything he wanted to do when they could leave the hospital together. We'll go back to the bakery for coffee, he said. I'll show Mr. Frank how much I've improved in math, and Aunt Jennifer said you're going to teach me how to play football. I also want to see the house where you live, Tyler continued. Aunt Elizabeth said it has a big library. Can I read all the books? These one-sided conversations became a source of hope for the whole family. Seeing the boy's dedication and his unwavering faith in Richard's recovery inspired everyone around. Robert, who had completely changed his opinion about the situation, began to participate more actively. He brought educational children's books for Tyler and even started helping with math lessons. You know, Tyler, he said one afternoon, when I was a child, Richard taught me math exactly the way he teaches you. He was always a natural teacher. Did you learn at the bakery too, Mr. Robert? Asked Tyler innocently. Robert laughed. No, I learned at home. But Richard had always loved teaching. Our mother used to say he was born to be a father. These conversations helped Tyler better understand the family that was preparing to welcome him. Each person had stories and memories that connected them to Richard in different ways. Catherine continued bringing updates about Richard's business, but now included Tyler in the conversations, explaining in simple terms how the company worked. Your father helps people by building houses, she explained, and now he wants to create a school for children who can't afford it. Like me? Asked Tyler. Like you. He wants to give other children the same opportunities he's giving you. Tyler became thoughtful. When I grow up, can I help him with that? Of course you can. You'll make a great team. 2 months after the storm accident, Tyler was in complete remission. His leukemia had responded exceptionally well to treatment, and the doctors were confident in his recovery. "It's one of the most impressive cases I've ever seen," commented Dr. Clare. "This boy's willpower was crucial to his recovery." Tyler celebrated the news beside Richard's bed. "Did you hear that, Mr. Goodman? I'm cured. Now I can take care of you without worrying about getting sick too." It was during this moment of celebration that the third miracle happened. Richard slightly moved his head toward Tyler's voice. The movement was subtle but visible to everyone in the room. "He moved his head," shouted Jennifer. "Daddy, can you hear us?" The medical team was urgently called. After a series of tests, they confirmed that Richard was showing increasing signs of consciousness. "We believe he's gradually emerging from the coma," explained Dr. Susan. "The process might take days or weeks, but the signs are very positive." Tyler stayed by the bedside, constantly talking to Richard, telling him about his recovery, about the plans they had together, about how eager he was to see him wake up. "I dreamed we were at the bakery again," he told him. "You were teaching me a new word, but I couldn't remember what it was when I woke up. When you really wake up, can you teach me again?" On the 5th day after the first movements, what everyone had been waiting for happened. During one of these morning conversations with Tyler, Richard slowly opened his eyes. The first face he saw was Tyler's, leaning over his bed, with big eyes full of happy tears. "Mr. Goodman," whispered Tyler. "You're awake." Richard tried to speak, but his voice came out only as a hoarse whisper after months of silence. "Tyler," he managed to say with great effort. "It's me," exclaimed the boy. "I stayed here with you the whole time. I didn't leave for a single day." Tears streamed down Richard's face as he tried to process where he was and what had happened. His first concern, however, was for Tyler. Are you okay?" he asked, noticing the boy was thinner and had no hair. "I'm great," replied Tyler. "I was sick like you, but now I'm cured. The doctor said I'll be fine." Jennifer, who had been urgently called, came running into the room and found father and son awake, talking softly. "Daddy!" she exclaimed, approaching the bed. Richard looked at his daughter with confusion for a moment, still processing his situation. "Jennifer, how long have I been asleep?" "6 months, Daddy." "You've been in a coma for 6 months." The information was a shock to Richard, who looked around the room trying to understand how he had gotten there. "Was Tyler here with me?" he asked. "Every day," replied Jennifer. "He never gave up on you." Richard looked at the boy with an expression of deep love and gratitude. "My son," he said, using for the first time the word he had kept in his heart. "Thank you for staying with me." Tyler began to cry with emotion. "You called me son," he sobbed. "Really?" "Really," confirmed Richard, extending his hand to the boy. "If you want, you are my son." "I want that very much," replied Tyler, holding the hand of the man who had become his family. The following days were of gradual recovery for Richard. His mind was clear, but his body needed to readjust after months of inactivity. Tyler became his constant companion during physical therapy and rehabilitation exercises. "Come on, sir. I mean, Dad," Tyler would say, correcting himself with a smile. "You can take one more step." Richard was moved every time Tyler called him Dad. It was a dream he had held for decades, and that was now coming true in the most unexpected way possible. During these recovery sessions, they talked about everything that had happened. Richard learned about Robert's initial opposition, about how Jennifer had changed her mind, about the presence of Elizabeth and Hope. "You have a big family now," Richard said to Tyler. "Many people who love you." "But you are the most important," replied Tyler. "You were the first one who truly cared about me." "And you were the one who brought me back to life," Richard replied, literally and figuratively. 2 weeks after Richard woke up, the doctors authorized his discharge from the hospital. The moment of leaving the hospital was emotional for everyone involved. Tyler, who had spent months in the hospital, was nervous about leaving the place that had become his second home. "What if you need the doctors?" he asked Richard. "I won't need them," replied Richard. "Now I have you to take care of me at home." The departure from the hospital was like a small celebration. The medical staff, who had followed the entire journey, said goodbye with emotion. Nurse Margaret hugged Tyler with tears in her eyes. "You are a very special boy," she said. "You saved this man's life with your love." "He saved mine too," replied Tyler. "He gave me a family." The first stop after the hospital was, naturally, Riverside Bakery. Frank had prepared a special table to welcome Richard and Tyler back. "What a joy to see you two together and well," said the owner. "Every morning I looked at that empty table and hoped you would return." Tyler ordered the same coffee with milk and bread that they always shared, and Richard, still weak but happy, watched the boy with renewed pride. "Now I can teach you many new things," said Richard. "More advanced math, science, history." "And can you teach me how to play football?" asked Tyler, remembering the promise. "Of course, as soon as I can run again." The transition to family life was surprisingly natural. Richard had transformed one of the rooms in his house into a perfect space for Tyler, with a comfortable bed, a desk for studying, and shelves full of books appropriate for his age. Tyler explored the house with respectful curiosity, impressed by its size and comfort, but always returning to be near Richard. "It's very big," he commented. "Are you sure I can live here?" "It's our house," corrected Richard. "Everything here is ours now." Hope continued to visit regularly, and her relationship with Tyler remained strong. She had become a sort of grandmother to the boy, providing the emotional continuity he needed. "Can Mrs. Hope come live here too?" Tyler asked Richard during one of these visits. "If she wants to," replied Richard. "The more people loving you, the better." The offer was made officially, and Hope agreed to move into a small guest house on Richard's property. And so, Tyler kept his mother figure close while adapting to his new life. Jennifer became a constant presence in both their lives. Through Tyler, she had discovered a paternal side of Richard that she hadn't known, and this brought her closer to her father in a way she hadn't experienced since childhood. "You know, Dad," she said one afternoon when the three were in the garden, "you seem happier now than I can ever remember seeing you." "I feel whole," Richard replied. "I've found what was missing in my life." Tyler, who was drawing in a nearby notebook, looked up. "I feel whole too," he said. "Before I had a hole right here," he pointed to his chest, "and now it's filled." The legal procedures for the adoption were initiated immediately. With the support of the entire family and documentation of the case's special circumstances, the process moved faster than normal. During interviews with social workers, it became clear to everyone that this was a real family, formed by love and not just legal convenience. "In 30 years of career, I've rarely seen such a genuine connection between an adoptive father and a child," commented the assigned social worker. "It's evident that you belong together." While waiting for the paperwork to be finalized, Richard began including Tyler in his plans for the educational foundation. The boy, now with access to private tutors to make up for lost years of formal education, showed exceptional academic progress. "Tyler has the capacity to graduate from medical school," said the science tutor. "With proper support, he can achieve any academic goal." "That's what I saw in him from day one," Richard remarked. "Pure intelligence, just needing opportunity." Tyler beamed at these compliments, but his main motivation remained making Richard proud of him. "When I become a doctor," he would say, "I'm going to help sick children like I was. And I'll tell them there's always hope, because you taught me that." The day of the final adoption hearing was filled with emotion. The entire family was present: Jennifer, Robert, Elizabeth, Hope, and even Mr. Frank from the bakery. Tyler wore his first suit, bought specially for the occasion. He was nervous but determined. "What if the judge changes his mind?" he asked Richard on the morning of the hearing. "He won't," Richard reassured him. "You've been my son in my heart for a long time. Today is just to make it official on paper." The hearing was a formality. The judge, impressed with all the documentation and testimonies, declared the adoption official. "Tyler Williams Parker," he announced. "From today onward you are officially Tyler Williams Parker Montgomery, son of Richard Montgomery." Tyler began crying with joy, and Richard couldn't hold back his tears either. It was the moment both had dreamed of, finally becoming reality. "Now I'm really your son?" asked Tyler. "Oh, you've always been really my son," Richard answered. "Now everyone knows it." The celebration was held at the bakery itself, with Mr. Frank preparing a special cake. Tyler insisted that he wanted the party to be at the place where it all began. "This is where I met my father," he explained to the guests. "This is where our family started." During the party, Tyler approached Richard with a serious expression. "Dad, can I ask you an important question?" "Of course, son." "Now that I'm officially your son, can you teach me that word you were teaching me in my dream?" Richard smiled, remembering his own words during the months of coma. "The word was gratitude," he said. "It means being thankful for the good things that happen in our lives." "Gratitude," repeated Tyler. "I feel so much gratitude for having you as my father." "And I'm grateful to have you as my son," replied Richard, hugging the boy. 6 months after the official adoption, both Richard and Tyler had completely recovered from their respective medical journeys. Tyler had grown, his hair had grown back in dark curls, and he displayed the typical energy of a healthy 12-year-old child. Richard, in turn, had regained all his physical and mental strength. More than that, he had discovered a new vitality that came from having a renewed purpose in life. The educational foundation he had planned before the accident had finally gotten off the ground. The first project was a preparatory school for children in socially vulnerable situations, specifically designed to identify and nurture talents like Tyler. "We want to find other boys and girls like you," Richard explained to Tyler during a visit to the construction site of the future school. "Smart children who just need an opportunity." "Can I help find them?" asked Tyler. "I know what it's like to be invisible on the street." "Of course you can. You'll be our special consultant." The school opened a year later, with Tyler cutting the symbolic ribbon alongside Richard. The boy, now 13 and attending middle school with excellent grades, had become a symbol of hope for other children in similar situations. During the opening ceremony, Tyler gave a short speech that moved everyone present. "2 years ago, I was a child without a family, without a home, without hope," he said, his voice clear and confident. "Today, I have a father who loves me, a family that supports me, and a future full of possibilities. This happened because someone believed in me," he continued, looking at Richard. "And now, we want to believe in other children too. My father taught me that gratitude isn't just something you feel, it's also something you do. That's why we're here, to give back what we received." The audience applauded emotionally, and Richard approached the microphone. "My son just summarized the purpose of our foundation better than any speech I could have made," he said. "Tyler saved my life in every possible way. Now, together, we hope to save other lives too." The story of Richard and Tyler spread through the local media, inspiring other adoption stories and social initiatives. But for them, the most important thing was the simple and happy life they had built together. Every morning, they still had coffee at Riverside Bakery, no longer out of necessity but out of tradition. It was their special time where they talked about the day's plans, about Tyler's studies, about the foundation's projects. "Daddy," said Tyler one of those mornings, a few months after the school opened, "do you regret anything about our story?" Richard thought for a moment. "Only that it took me so long to find you," he replied. "We could have been a family even longer." "But maybe I wasn't ready before," philosophized Tyler, with the early wisdom he had developed. "Maybe we met at the right time." "You're right," agreed Richard. "Everything happened at the perfect moment." Jennifer had married a man she met during one of the Foundation's campaigns and was now pregnant. Tyler was thrilled at the prospect of being an uncle. "I'll teach the baby everything you taught me," he promised Richard. "And I'll help you," replied Richard. "Now we're a family of teachers." Hope continued to live in the guest house and had become a key part of the extended family. She took care of Tyler when Richard traveled for work, and the boy treated her with the affection of a real grandson. Elizabeth had gradually resumed her friendship with Richard, not as a couple, but as co-parents to Tyler. The boy had gained another maternal figure in his life, multiplying the love that surrounded him. Robert had become Tyler's favorite uncle, always bringing gifts related to his studies and encouraging his academic ambitions. "Uncle Robert," said Tyler during a visit, "aren't you sad that Dad chose to adopt me instead of leaving everything to you?" Robert laughed. "Tyler, your father gave me the most valuable gift there is, a wonderful nephew. Money can be earned in other ways, but family is forever." On the second anniversary of the adoption, the family organized a special party. Tyler had grown even more, now 14 years old and excelling in all his school subjects. His dream of becoming a doctor was getting closer to reality. During the party, Richard made an important announcement. "Tyler, 2 years ago you saved my life by laying your head on my chest when I was in a coma," he said, emotional. "Today I want to give you something that symbolizes our connection." He handed Tyler a small velvet box. Inside was a simple necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. "This necklace belonged to your grandmother Eleanor," explained Richard, "the lady you saved from that hit and run. She wanted you to have it when you officially became part of the family." Tyler held the necklace carefully, moved by the meaning of the gift. "So our story started even before the bakery?" he asked. "Our story began with an act of kindness from you," replied Richard, "and continued with many other acts of kindness from various people. That's how real families are formed." Tyler put on the necklace and moved closer to Richard. "Can I lay my head on your chest again?" he asked with a smile. "Always," replied Richard, hugging his son, and so Tyler laid his head on Richard's chest once more, but now both were awake, healthy, and surrounded by a family that loved them. The businessman's heart beat strong and steady, no longer dependent on machines, but strengthened by the unconditional love he had found. The story that began with a desperate street child and a comatose millionaire had turned into a tale of family love, overcoming, and second chances. Tyler had saved Richard from the darkness of the coma, but Richard had saved Tyler from a hopeless life. Together they proved that family isn't just about blood or money, but about love, dedication, and the willingness to care for one another. And at the Riverside Bakery where it all began, Mr. Frank kept a small plaque on their favorite table. "Reserved for Mr. Richard and Tyler, the miracle table." End of story. And you? What did you think of this love story between father and son? Do you believe true love can heal deep wounds? Leave your comment sharing what moved you the most in this journey, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.